Friends shows were The Story of the Ghost, who made no left turns unstoned. He read the book, but he didn't like heavy things. That wasn't his theme. So when Esther came around, he had to moma dance over to the Ocelots, who had a much better stash anyway. He needed those olfactory hues so that he could make his left turns, because left is how he always turns. But it's easy to slip and get punched in the eye, and then you'd have to try to heal it with gauze like a gunshot wound. Did I say that this spells something? It's written on the walls of the cave, or you can listen to the silent trees of the Okipa ceremony with Harry Hood. I just hope you were silent the next morning if you weren't able to twist those letters all around. Meanwhile, our ghost is still slave to the traffic light, making all those left turns. And oh, sweet nothing, don't forget the meat stick, because we are at Dick's. Night 2 was the story of how the ghost died. He was buried alive in an AC/DC bag by the Wolfman's brother on Yarmouth Road. He had forgotten to pay the fee, so halfway to the moon they dropped him into the wedge. And as he was staring at Halley's Comet, he wished he was in a bathtub filled with gin. But he heard the siren's song bouncing around the room and knew that this was going to be his mound.
Who the fuck is this chick?
Knew that this was going to be his mound. One of his regrets was that he hadn't had time to stash the gumbo, and he hoped that Marco Escondolis had done it for him.
Did you plan this all night last night?
Stop, please. And then the dust was becoming torture, and the light was growing brighter, and he wondered if it would be a full 46 days before his soul joined the steam. Then he would at least be free again to experience some joy. His other regret was that in 2001 he had forgotten his Uncle Ebenezer's birthday. He had forgotten to write it down. So he hoped if he ever got back on the road again, he would get to visit him in the freezer for a reprise. But don't worry about our ghost. He's had plenty of adventures, and that's what night 3 was about. He had sailed listening to a song the ocean singing on his way to Kill Devil Falls. He couldn't get back on the train because then he'd have to go over the rift, and he didn't have enough meat. He ran into some ice and got stranded on the ocean of Osiris, where he saw a beautiful divided sky, and he met a funky bitch who lived in a cavern and gave him a Cliff Bar and some cold green tea, as well as the address of David Bowie. But first he had to get through Carini, who was guarding David because of all the birds of a feather that were flocking outside, trying to relive his golden age of dust and stars. So he decided he didn't want to stay. He got on the ocean with Prince Caspian, but he was awoken to the sound of the storm and decided he'd rather be back boogieing on with the reggae woman. So but when he saw it again, she was with Mike, and he didn't want to criticize it, but he needed to find a woman that he could move. Such is the show of life, full of struggle and strife, especially when he met Susie Greenberg, who robbed him blind and dragged him into the undertow because she had zero character.
Nice.
Awesome.
Wow. No one clap and lose your balloons.